Have you ever just looked around and wondered, why is there so much fighting? At home, at work, maybe even just inside your own head? Or maybe you felt like your prayers are just hitting the ceiling. Well, in this explainer, we are diving deep into James chapter 4 because it holds an absolutely powerful truth. The only way to win the war out there is to first win the war within. So, James just jumps right in with this incredibly direct question. He doesn't blame our circumstances, he doesn't blame other people for our conflicts. Nope, he turns the spotlight right back on us, suggesting that the real battlefield isn't out there in the world, it's actually raging right inside our own hearts. So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll get a handle on this war within. Then we'll look at the huge choice we all have to make, the world versus God. After that, we'll uncover the path to real spiritual power, and we'll wrap it all up with a practical action plan you can start today. All right, let's get right to the root of the issue. James is basically telling us that all the arguments, all the friction, all the drama we experience, it's all just a symptom. The real disease is an internal, unmet desire that's constantly fighting for control. And you can see how these symptoms are all connected, right? They feed each other. James says in verse 2, "Ye lust and have not. Ye kill and desire to have and cannot obtain." It's this vicious cycle. We want something we don't have that leads to this deep dissatisfaction that just kills our joy and our relationships, and it eventually boils over into fights, leaving us feeling totally drained spiritually. This verse right here, this is a game changer. It perfectly explains why our prayers sometimes feel so powerless. It's not that God isn't listening, it's that we're asking amiss. We're asking for the wrong reasons. When our prayer list is basically just a wish list to feed our own worldly desires, we're completely out of alignment with God's will and His power. And that internal battle we've been talking about, it leads us right here to a choice that we absolutely cannot avoid. James lays it out plain and simple. You can't play for both teams. You have to decide. Who are you going to be friends with? The world or God? So what does it even mean to be a friend of the world? It's not about enjoying nature or appreciating good food. Biblically speaking, it's about trying to find your worth, your identity, your satisfaction in things that are completely opposed to God's way. Things like status, money, or social climbing. James even calls it spiritual adultery, which is a really strong term because it's being unfaithful to the only relationship that can ever truly satisfy you. Just look at the contrast here. It couldn't be more clear. One path, friendship with the world, literally leads to being an enemy of God, to having desires that are never satisfied, and to being what James calls double-minded. But the other path, friendship with God, that opens the door to His grace, to real lasting satisfaction, and to a spiritual power that has no limits. And this is the bottom line. James doesn't pull any punches. There is no middle ground. You can't have one foot in the world and one foot with God. Trying to be friends with both, he says, actually makes you an enemy of God. It's a choice we all have to make. Okay, so that's the problem, and it's a big one. But what's the solution? Well, the great news is that James gives us a super clear path forward, and it's all about getting 3 key relationships right. Our relationship with God, our relationship with evil, and of course, our relationships with each other. And here it is. This is the 5-step process for total spiritual turnaround. It all starts with submitting our will to God's. It's only from that place of surrender that we get the strength to resist the devil. And as we draw closer to God, He then calls us to clean up our act, both our external actions and our internal motives, so we stop being so double-minded. This verse right here is the master key to this entire chapter. Humility isn't thinking less of yourself. It's just thinking of yourself less often. See, when we operate out of pride, we are literally setting ourselves up in opposition to God. But the moment we choose humility, we open up the floodgates for His grace, His power, and favor that we could never earn on our own. And listen, this isn't just a nice little platitude. James presents this as an ironclad promise. It's a divine principle. When we choose to lower ourselves and submit to God, He is the one who lifts us up. We can stop fighting and striving for our own position because He's got it covered. So all of this internal change, this humility, what does that actually look like in our everyday lives? James gets super practical. It all comes down to how we talk about and how we treat other people. A right relationship with God always shows up in how we treat other people. James says that when we slander or judge someone, we're essentially trying to sit in God's chair, judging both His law and His children.
Real humility puts a stop to that. When we're secure in who we are in God, we don't need to tear other people down to feel better about ourselves. And if we needed any more motivation to get this right, James hits us with this incredibly sobering reminder. Our life is so short. It's like your breath on a cold morning. It's there for a second, and then it's just gone. There is absolutely no time to waste on pride and internal wars.
So let's make this really practical. Here's a simple action plan for this week. First, submit. Practice acknowledging God's control by simply adding the phrase, "if the Lord wills," to your plans. Second, humble. Instead of criticizing, find one person to actively encourage. Third, draw near. Carve out just 5 minutes to be quiet and actually listen in prayer. And fourth, resist. Pick one worldly desire that's been tripping you up and consciously turn away from it. And that really brings us to the final question we all have to wrestle with. Knowing our time here is so short, what's one choice you can make today to end the war inside and align your life with the will of God? Because that's where you'll find true peace and real power.
We really hope this journey through James chapter 4 has been a blessing to you. Thanks so much for joining us for this devotional.